been talking the last couple weeks on, is this not the appointed time? Is this not God's appointed time? It's the end of the 4 blood moons, it's the end of shemittah. We're in the year of Jubilee. It is when in ancient Jewish wisdom it says the Gentiles who see this will never go into the valley and stay there. Right. They'll be going from glory to glory. Yes. And in this, I've actually been teaching here in the church in Dallas on how to live by faith, because I don't want any of our people in the church to miss out on this Jubilee time. I mean, it's the most amazing time in the history of the world. It'll never be here again. It's never been here. It'll never be here again. So I've been teaching on how to live by faith. Positive words, positive thoughts, positive deeds. Yes. I'll show you my faith by my works, what I do. And little did I know that while I'm teaching this, long story short, for about a month and a half, I kept losing my breath, and I didn't know what it was, and we thought it was bronchitis, and they sent me to the hospital, and they gave me an inhaler, and found out because of surgery I had on my knee last year, I had blood clots all through my legs and in both of my lungs. And finally had to go in the hospital again, had surgery. But what caught our attention, and listen to this. This is maybe the most important thing I can ever teach you. I go in there and to the surgeon, and they do another ultrasound on me, and he comes in and he goes, "We're putting you back in the hospital tomorrow. I'm going to operate on you tomorrow." And he looks at me, and this is a wonderful Christian man. His a man from China. His parents are pastors, and he looked at Tiz and I, and he said, "But by the hand of God and the grace of God," now listen to what I'm telling you. Tiz is sitting there, "But by the hand of God, the grace of God," he said, "Larry, you should not be alive." These blood clots are called widowmakers. One can drop you. Both of your lungs are absolutely full. Your vein from your hip to your foot is totally blocked. You should not be alive, but by the hand of God. And when he said that, God just spoke to me. One of my favorite scriptures, our favorite scriptures in all the world, is Romans 8:28. All things work together for good. And God said, write this down. Write this down and give it to your family on television and in the church. All things work for the good of those who love God, and all of you love God or you wouldn't be watching, and are called according to his purpose. And God spoke to me right there, and he said, if you had not been fulfilling your purpose, then I would not be alive today. God, many, many years ago, God called me to stand with Israel and to teach the Jewishness of the teachings of Jesus. God called us to stand with Israel. And when we moved to Dallas about 10 years ago, the world wasn't ready for it. We almost went bankrupt. We almost lost everything because we were standing with Israel, and it wasn't popular in the church. And I remember having a family meeting when we were going under. And Anna said to me, "Dad, this is why God sent us here, to stand with Israel and to teach the Jewish roots of the Bible." And we said, we're going to do that. And for years, I mean, it was tough going. But now, we've gone from, standing with Israel heresy into being able to speak. By the time you see this, I'll already have spoke at the UN. And not only that, but I believe in all my heart, had I walked away from my calling, from my mission, I would be dead today, because all things work together for the good of those who love God. I've always loved God. But had I made the decision to go the popular way, we made a decision, and just been, another church in another corner, I believe in all my heart I would have died. But because we've decided to teach the Jewish roots, to teach first fruits, to teach the Jewishness of Jesus, and even more important, to stand with Israel, to make a stand, to stand in the gap,
Amen.
I am alive today
Amen.
by the hand of
Yes.
God
Yes.
because I am standing with Israel. And in this Jubilee time, God's calling you.
Amen.
When you send in, and we're going to talk about first fruits, but when you send in your first fruit, we're going to Israel to stand with Israel to build a grove of olive trees in the land of Amos, Amos, the town of Amos. And I'm going to tell you something. Everything we put our hands to, I know in my heart, because we have stood with Israel, and you were there with us on every time one of the doctors said something, we heard at least 10, 12 times, I should not be alive.
Right.
But when you've got a mission and you're fulfilling that mission,
God,
right. if God be for you, who can be against you?
And you know, I'm going to try and tell this, but that's a scary thing.
It was scary.
What happened just completely took us by surprise. Completely took us by surprise. I mean, we had finished a powerful Sunday morning service where you're preaching on the power of your words. And by the end of that night, you were admitted into the ICU.
Right.
And it was very, very alarming and just so bizarre because we're in this vein of God opening doors for this vision and the word and the things that are going on. And when they said that night, how close you were to death, you know, I remember going home that night. You finally sent me home about 2 in the morning, and I said, Lord, this shall not be. He shall live and shall not die and shall accomplish every word that is meant to be accomplished through our lives. And it was calling in those receipts that we were able to stand on that word. It wasn't denying what was going on, but it was overcoming what was going on because of the words of God, the promises of God, and the receipts of our life.
Amen.
And we stood there and we prayed and said, God, everything that we've done for you, we're calling in that harvest for this time.
Amen. Because
of the great things that you have for us to do. Take it.
Yeah, and you know, and I'll tell you, there's nothing against hospitals or anything like that, but twice they admitted me into the hospital and messed up.
Yeah.
Twice they messed up. For a month and a half, they messed up. And then when I went back and they put me in the hospital and they admitted me and then they let me out a few days later, and my leg kept swelling up. And so we called the surgeon, who's a Christian man, and he said, well, that's not normal, you should come in. And they did an ultrasound again on my leg, and he goes, it's not just in your calf, it's all the way to your thigh, and the hospital messed up again. And I thank God for doctors. I thank God for everybody that's a genius in that.
Yes.
But that's when God spoke to me, and he said, they're practicing medicine. When you are in the will of God, you are in the hands of the great physician. Amen. And that's when the doctor came in and said, but by the hand of God. And so they did another ultrasound on my leg, and the gal who was doing it started laughing. Yeah. And Tiz jokingly said, is it twins? You know, doing an ultrasound on my leg, and she started laughing. She goes, I don't know if it's twins, but there's its hand, there's its finger. And tell them what we saw.
So
we all saw it.
We're there, and we see on the screen from the ultrasound a vein with something in it that looked kind of like a finger, looked exactly like a finger. And I said to her, I said, what is that your finger in the ultrasound? She said, that's in the vein. And it was exactly like
fingernail, knuckle, everything.
Exactly like that Michelangelo painting where God is
the hand of God.
Exactly.
Bent like that and everything.
Bent like that and moving up and down within the vein. And I said, that's the hand of God, the finger of God.
And she's laughing and laughing. We said, what is that? And she said, that's the blood clot, but it's pumping, it's moving and pumping. Instead of stopping the blood, that finger thing is moving, pushing the blood through. Yeah. Listen, the reason that happens is because we are understanding the wisdom of God.
Thank you, Lord.
And this is the end of it. We're over the blood moons. We're over shemittah. We're in the Jubilee. This is the time of first fruits. Yes. If you've ever wanted a breakthrough, this will never be there again. It will never happen again. Yeah. But more than prosperity, what good would prosperity have done if I would have died. It's more than that. I am alive today without a shadow of a doubt. And it wasn't just one doctor.
No.
It was when I was being checked out of the hospital for the third time, two of the head nurses came in and said, we just wanted to show this other doctor your sheet. They said, do you know what a miracle this is that you're alive? I'm alive today because we have followed the call of standing with Israel.
Yeah.
That life, that Jubilee life, is going to come on you and your family and your finances. Maybe it's in your body. Maybe it's in your home. Maybe it's in your children. That life, that blessing of God will be way beyond prosperity. It will be in every area of your life because God Almighty says, I will bless those who bless you. And you know, right during that time, I get emails from the rabbis that I study with. Every one of the teachings, they didn't know anything about this, was about your purpose, your call, your destiny. You are a divine soul with a divine destiny, and it's about to be released when you stand with us as we stand with Israel. We'll be right back.